Hi, I'm Erica, and welcome to Powered by Joy podcast. And I'm your host here. And today we're talking about things like procrastination or that shitty to-do list. Let's call it the shit-do list, the one that you just you've got this list of stuff you're always putting off or things that you're dreading doing, and it makes you not even want to wake up in the morning or get out of bed. We're talking about that today. So if that's something you struggle with, be sure to stay tuned as we talk about solutions and things that can help you move forward out of that mindset. It's not fun, I know. Anyways, I want to welcome you here, and we are here discussing things like how to bring more joy into our lives, how to feel alive again, how to feel like we can make shifts and change, get empowered to make changes in our lives, to live a better life that we are looking forward to waking up and existing each day, right? And we do that without sacrificing our commitment to our family and friends. So, welcome. Today, I was thinking about how there are so many times in our lives where we have a morning where we wake up and maybe you just feel like snooze, because whatever you have on the day's agenda, whether it's going to your 9 to 5 or taking care of the kids, or you're retired and you just have to do all sorts of things, whatever it is. We all often have things that we have on our agenda for the day that make us not want to hop out of bed. And it might be things that have been hanging over our heads for days or weeks or months, and we just are like, I don't have to deal with it. Yeah, I can't wait. I don't have to deal with it today. And you just go about your way. So you basically hit snooze either on getting out of bed, or you hit snooze on handling and doing the things that have been on that list. We'll call it the shit list. How about that? We'll call it the shit list instead. They've been on that shit list that you just don't want to deal with. Okay. So I have two different concepts we're going to talk about, and they're probably phrases you've heard before. And so we'll get into those as well. But what I wanted to talk about is think about how in the morning, let's say you have a whole to-do list, you go to work and there's a few things that you're like are going to be big projects that you really don't want to tackle, but you kind of want to put it off. And we try to figure out how to get started. And oftentimes we find ourselves doing other things that are easier because that feels easier, right? So one of the things that I've learned over time is that they call it eating the frog. And that's like you eat the frog first in your day. So like if I woke up and let's say I had to make some phone calls, I was really dreading in my business. Maybe I need to call someone about a refund or just hashing out some business that just right? I used to put that off to the end of the day. I'd tackle the easy stuff first, get through that to-do list and be like, okay, now I'll deal with it. But then the whole day, that thing's just like weighing on me, right? And I actually found that by like just tackling that phone call that I'm completely dreading first, then it was just out of the way and I felt so accomplished that everything else after it felt so much easier. And so it's easy to say, but harder to sometimes start doing. But when you can create a discipline around just telling yourself, okay, when I wake up in the morning, like, what is that thing that you feel dread about, or you just feel like it's going to be really hard? We usually have more mental energy. We have more capacity. They show that we only have a capacity for so many decisions. We get decision fatigue in our brains. And so taking care of that first means you're saving a lot of decisions, because if you wait till the end of the day to tackle that thing, you're literally every time you're about to start a new thing, you're like, should I do it now? Yes or no? That's another decision. Like, so you're thinking about all day. So you're continually having to make, so you're wasting your decision bank, energy bank is just going, and so then at the end of the day, you maybe not be as well equipped to handle the thing. So one of the practices I felt really helped was like starting out my day and going, okay, what are the probably two things I'm really dreading doing or feel like they're going to be the hardest to do, and starting with them. And oftentimes another trick I hear about is like doing something that's similar before or something hard before, because then when you do something, let's say it's a workout, so you don't feel like working out that morning, but then when you do it, when you go to do the hard thing like making that phone call, it can feel easier because you already overcame an obstacle and did something hard that morning and won and were victorious, and it kind of sets that tone and it echoes throughout the day, or it cascades down and flows. So when we tackle those hard things first, that's why I was never someone who wanted to work out in the mornings, but I did find that by switching my exercise to the morning, it did set a tone for the day where I did the hard thing by choice, overcame my feelings and resistance, that it sets this tone for the rest of the day where I'm like, oh, well, I did that, I can do this. And it builds up this stamina of like, I can do things that don't feel easy, and I can just plow through them and get them done. And I can, take charge and make change. So the things I was thinking about were like, here's a perfect example. My taxes. Okay. Especially when you're self-employed, your taxes can be a little bit more daunting, and you usually have to gather up your expenses and your income and everything. And so I used to put that off till literally the end of the year, like all of it. This is years ago. I wouldn't prep really throughout the year. I'd have a file and everything went in the files, but I didn't do anything throughout the year. And so then I would literally dread all year, and I'd file an extension and I would wait because I knew when I started it was going to take me days and days and hours of just being in this slog of like, oh, just like yucky, just stressful, boring, tedious stuff. And I hated doing it. And then I realized that if I just started tracking minimum monthly and took the time to put in my expenses and my income monthly into a spreadsheet, then by the end of the year, like, I didn't have to think about it. The totals were there. They totaled themselves by committing to taking, I don't know, half hour to an hour a month. And that's, out of all the hours we have in a month, at 1 hour is not a lot to just stop and check in, update your information. And then I still had those files. And then if I needed details for my accountant, then I went in there and added those up and got those. But that felt much less daunting at the end of the year by going throughout that. So that's my second one that you've probably heard. There's eating the frog, so getting it done first. And then there's the second one, and that would be, how do you eat an elephant? They say eat it one bite at a time. So I feel like these are two different ways to deal with procrastination. So when you're dealing with a task like taxes, and it's a much bigger project, by one bite at a time, then it's doable, right? And I found that by telling myself, like, for example, I would used to set like a whole day or two aside. And now, like, I do that once a month. But then when it is time to get my stuff ready, instead of making myself go, oh, I'm going to spend all day Saturday doing my taxes, I will schedule like 1 hour on Monday, and I'm going to schedule 1 hour on Thursday. And I'm going to just tell myself I'm working on this part of the taxes and then this. And by doing that, I actually realized that oftentimes I could get this stuff done in less than an hour, but I felt like I was doing something and I was feeling accomplished and prepared, and it wasn't like this emergent big burden. So that's an example of eating the elephant one bite at a time as a way to deal with procrastination and getting something off your shit list or your to-do list that you've been dreading, right? Is that one bite at a time? What's the baby step? And I do highly recommend that if it's something that is reoccurring, like taxes, that you consider doing something on a regular basis to make the bites smaller and more palatable, more chewable. So help yourself by making things feel easier and more doable by doing little steps all along the way. That is very helpful. Okay, so the second one would be the eating the frog. So an example of that would be, let's say you needed to give notice at your job and you were quitting your work. You need to give 2 weeks notice. You really are tight with that boss. You work with them every day and you're really dreading giving notice, but you're really excited about this new job, but you know it's coming and you've known it's coming and you wait. So in the meantime, you haven't had this conversation. You're showing up at work every day, and the entire day you're spending with this person, you've got this inner dialogue like, oh, I'm going to tell him, how's it going to react? What's it going to be like? I'm so stressed about it. And you're making up all these outcomes and you're dreading the feelings and disappointment they might have. And you're taking on all this stuff, and you've made probably 25 to 2,500 stories of the outcome of how it's going to play out. You're like, what am I going to say? Oh, God. And talk about decision fatigue. I like to switch my letters around, keep it fun and exciting. But imagine how much mental fatigue and decision fatigue that creates when you have something as big as that just weighing on you. It creates stress in your body. You're releasing stress hormones. You've got worry, fear, you've got all these negative things, and it's just depleting your energy. And let's just say that during that week, let's say that you don't give notice and don't just eat the frog and get it over with. I'm going to guess that when it's evening time and you're not at work, you're still thinking about it. It's still draining you. I mean, some people can compartmentalize, good for you. But the healthier thing is to not have it on your back at all and to just deal with it. Just charge in there head first and eat the frog and just do the thing right away. Because usually, you've probably heard this before, but maybe it'll click this time. Usually the thing plays out way less stressful, or maybe less uncomfortable, ends up not being as bad as you imagine. So all that build up and worry usually paints a much worse picture. And that is usually much worse than the actual thing. All that time and worry and stress is usually much worse and more intense than the actual moment. And yes, it might feel super uncomfortable, and that hard conversations are never easy. But every time we are like, okay, no matter what the outcome is here, I'm still going to be okay. And they might be upset and sad, but that doesn't change that I'm safe and okay. Hopefully you're safe and okay. There's different circumstances, but I'm talking specifically, like, let's think about the job instance. But oftentimes, if we're in a normal, healthy, somewhat safe, secure environment, or we've been doing some inner work on ourselves, when we speak up and have those hard conversations first, or we set boundaries, like maybe someone keeps calling you, and you like to get to bed by 9 o'clock, and you have somebody who keeps calling you up till 10 or 11 at night, and you feel obligated to answer because you care about this person and you don't want them to feel rejected or that you're not there for them. You eat the frog and you set that boundary and you have a really uncomfortable conversation. And let me tell you, the stress of that one conversation versus getting mad every time they call you late and don't respect that you're trying to go to bed earlier, that is way worse. So it's kind of like the worry before, but this one, if you're needing to have a conversation, you're creating that outcome lasting longer if you just don't have the conversation. So in the boundary situation, like saying, hey, I want to be there for you and you're important to me. I'm also really trying to honor what my body needs, and I need rest, and that makes me a much more happy person that's able to respond and support you better when I'm well rested. So I just need you to know that unless it's a emergency where you're like bleeding or like things are dire, then yeah, go ahead and give me a call. But if it's not, could you maybe consider doing a text that says, hey, tomorrow, can you call me about XYZ? Or maybe just make a note to yourself and call me in the morning, or just please make sure you call me before 9 o'clock at night, or even 8, because I'm going to be in bed by 9. So don't call me at 9, call me at 8. And I just really need you to do that for me, because I'm really needing that rest. And usually, depending on the relationship, but most people are going to respond with oh, okay, I didn't realize that. And you might have to ask more than once, and that's okay. We don't have to get angry about it. We can just be like, hey, I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned that I'm really trying to honor my bedtime and take care of my rest and my sleep. So just so you're aware, I'm putting do not disturb on my phone. So if I don't get back to you, it's not because I don't love and care about you, but I have had to turn on a do not disturb so I do not get woke up by my phone at night, because I really need rest. And so just get hold of me, before 8 o'clock if you really have something that's really important that you need my help with. So That is eating the frog by initiating that uncomfortable conversation and getting it over with. And so every time we eat the frog or we take one bite of the elephant, then, it really develops a part of our sides that we start to affirm that, oh, I'm someone who can step up and do hard things, or I can have hard conversations, or I can tackle things like my taxes. I just have to do it one step at a time. And when we give ourselves permission to find ways to make things easier, especially when it's the elephant one bite at a time situation where it's a big project or something feeling really overwhelming that we're dreading, I'm always trying to ask myself, like, what's a way I can convince myself to get this done? Or maybe it's that I'm going to work on my taxes sitting on the patio in the sunshine. Or maybe it's that if I just know that I'm only doing a half hour today just to get started, it's easier to get started when you make it feel easier and more doable. And so finding ways to just make a baby step in the right direction on some of those bigger projects. When we do that consistently, all of a sudden our brain's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not such a miserable thing. I'm not going to be locked inside all day. I can show up and be present for an hour and get this done. And then you have this sense of accomplishment. So in all the scenarios I just shared, whenever you show up like that, you're honoring your inner child's needs as well. Your inner self is like, hey, I don't want to be locked up doing taxes for 2 days straight. I need some playtime and rest time too. So making it, small bite sizes is honoring your need. Or when you're setting a boundary or you're giving notice and going, I trust myself that even if they're uncomfortable or this doesn't feel comfortable, then I'm still okay. I'm not doing anything wrong here. I've honored my notice. And, to be honest, it's not our responsibility if that boss gets upset with you. It's not your responsibility to make them feel better. Their reactions and their emotions are theirs. It's not ours. And don't take it on yourself, right? And if we're going into the conversation with reflection, honesty, compassion, and respect, then you shouldn't have to worry that as long as you're showing up that way, then you are coming from a place that is where you're doing your best. And we're usually all doing our best, right? So have some compassion with yourself too. It's always uncomfortable. So if you don't have the perfect words to handle something uncomfortable, it's okay. And you can say that. You can be like, I need to tell you something and I don't know that I have the right words. And so I just need you to be patient with me, but I'm just trying to express some of my needs right now, like in this relationship. Like I really need some date nights because I miss time together, and I'm just not sure how to word that, right? So it's okay to tell people like, hey, I need to handle this thing and I'm not good at it, or I'm going to struggle or not say this right, but please be patient with me. When we preface all of that, like then our next job is to not take on their reaction and emotions and try to fix it. It's okay to let them feel their feelings and move on. So the main point of this is as we continue to show up and eat the frog first, you will find that it unlocks and unleashes all this energy, freedom, your flow. It's easier because you don't have all the decisions weighing on you. You don't have all this shit waiting on you. Like you just feel completely different and you feel more empowered and you start to see like, oh, when I do that stuff, the rest of the day feels so much easier. Then you have nothing to dread. You have the rest of the day to be like, I can tackle that. That's the easy part of my to-do list. So bless yourself by considering eating the frog first in your day when you still have energy, you're rested, you don't have decision fatigue, and getting those hard things out of the way. Or when you have big projects that you tend to procrastinate on, consider just asking yourself, like first thing in the morning after I've done a workout or something else that makes me feel really accomplished, what's something I can do for a short time to move the needle towards my end goal? And how can I make it easier and enjoyable? Maybe it's that you have to turn on music. Maybe you have to have a little dance fest before. Like I said, maybe it's that you're lifting weights before so that you're like in a space where you can be calm and centered. Whatever the thing is, maybe it's a motorcycle ride that you have to go do before. Whatever the thing is, doing that so your mindset's right first can also help. And so I hope that these tools or ideas are helpful in tackling things that tend to make you procrastinate or feel stuck. And let me tell you, when you start to it's almost like you wipe the slate clean every day when you get the hard shit off your list. Like when I do that, then it's like, ooh, oh yeah, the rest of the day feels good. It's like a clean slate because everything else feels so manageable. And so now when I have those things, I look forward to just getting in there and tackling them, because then I know how good and light I'm going to feel. I always feel so much lighter and more focused and clear and willing to do the other stuff. So free yourself by just getting some of that shit list done first in the day while you still have the energy. So I want to encourage you that if you have any questions about getting unstuck or getting moved through some of those things, or maybe you have a specific project that you've been stuck on for a long time and you're like, I don't know how to pick that one first step that I'm going to do for 1 hour. If you need help with clarifying that, or some help figuring out a plan to move forward or get in a habit of not being stuck and putting things off, you can certainly reach out to me with my email, or you can ask questions below, or you can also reach out and schedule a one-on-one with me if you prefer that style. And of course, I'd love it if you would share, rate, and subscribe, because I'd love it if you'd help me build this community I'm so passionate about building. And I'd love to be a resource if you have questions about making these shifts in your life that then can make space for you having a life filled with more joy, because you've taken care of the shit so you can now go play and have fun. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening.